name is Meagan Holt. I am the director of Project PC, or Positive Change. We're a local nonprofit creating media educational materials to help educate the public. I also have a terminally ill 3-year-old who has Zellweger syndrome. You've probably never heard of it because it is extremely rare. Most children don't live past their first year of life. My daughter is deaf, blind, completely dependent on a feeding tube. She has osteoporosis, kidney stones, adrenal insufficiency, coagulopathy, low muscle tone, and in January of 2015 she developed seizures. Immediately her seizures became life-threatening. Daily 911 calls, hour-long events, always going to the hospital. In 8 weeks we ran through over 20 pharmaceuticals, and on April 10th of 2015 they discharged us home for the last time and told us to return the next day in preparation of our daughter's life ending soon from either a seizure or the medication they gave her. Me being a parent, I went online in the weeks leading up to her getting sent home to die, and I found cannabis. The one night we were sent home, we got her authorized, returned to the hospital, and she went 8 days completely seizure-free. Since that time, my child has weaned off of Dilaudid, methadone, and several other pharmaceuticals completely supported with cannabis. And despite having a disease that destroys the white matter of the brain, it's only progressive, she's done nothing but get better. She is now one of the oldest living kids in the world with her disease. She'll be 4 on November 1st. And when I came into this industry, like I said, it was April 2015. May 2015, I start looking up cannabis laws because, you know, with my daughter having a debilitating disease, I have an affirmative defense. I'm saving my kid's life. The medical community gave up on her. I publicly post her discharge paperwork showing people that they sent us home with no options. And for me, it was really scary to find out that one, the little protection that I had was being lost, and two, I was going to be forced into a registry like a sex offender. And I will speak on that a little bit. I am not registered in the database, and my daughter does hold a medical cannabis authorization, and part of that is that I have always stood and always will stand that I'm doing what's best for my daughter. If the federal government wants to step in and take her medicine, they can do that, but I cannot, as a parent, put my child's life at risk. And by putting my name and her name into a database, that also puts my 2-year-old's life at risk, and my husband, because your address goes into the registry, your, my information, her information, which isn't okay. You know, when you have a child who literally lives day to day, I literally, cannabis is saving my child and she's making improvements, but I still face the reality that, one, there's not enough research to know if it's truly stopping her progression. So I still plan that my child will not be here tomorrow. And so with Washington State, we have a lot of issues that need to get handled. And the biggest issue is re-educating our medical community, because one of the most appalling things I've had to deal with is going back into the hospital with my daughter as a cannabis patient. I go into Seattle Children's Hospital, and you would think that I was going into a torture chamber. I have had several times where I've tried to go back into the hospital supported with cannabis. I've also let you guys know I've never had CPS involvement because I have always been completely open and honest. My providers gave up on her, and they know that this works for her, so I'm completely supported. So I come into the hospital with this care plan that's written out. It says Maddie uses THC for pain, it says Maddie uses CBD for seizures and for neuropathic issues, and I still get Dilaudid locked in her med cupboard because, well, the cannabis might not work. And that's just completely unacceptable, because not only is that wasting supply, but you're costing the insurance more money by charging for a drug that she's not even using. And so, the other issue that happens too is these doctors come in the room and they go, oh, she's on cannabis. What exactly is she using it for? And then I start talking to him, and I'll mention the endocannabinoid system, and I have a doctor who's supposed to be the chief medical officer at the hospital, and he says, what's an endocannabinoid system? And I have to stop and go, where am I right now? Am I in a research hospital treating medically fragile children, or where am I? I mean, these people are supposed to be taking care of us, and from what I've seen, they did nothing but destroy my child. And that's why my mission is not descheduling. Yes, it needs to be descheduled. But the bigger issue is re-educating the medical community and the general public. Because I couldn't tell you how many people come up to me and say, well, aren't you worried you're getting your kid high? Go to my daughter's Whole Plant Journey page. Watch what happens after she gets cannabis. She's deaf and blind, so she doesn't know she's getting it, dependent on a feeding tube. So doesn't really even know I'm pushing it into her stomach. Within 5 minutes of getting her oil, she'll calm down, her heart rate returns to normal, she's always on monitors, and she's able to rest for 5 minutes from kidney stone pain. A baby. That is quality of life. Drugging people out in their final days, and I also get involved a lot with the elderly people in cannabis because I have a connection with hospice. My daughter receives palliative care and she will the rest of her life, but while we were on hospice, they said, oh, we'll give you a comfort kit. And I'm thinking, oh, cool, it's gonna have like massage oil and like comforting CDs. No, it's a cocktail, and we would joke that it was the Kill Me kit. Because when we're looking at this metazones, there's like trazodone, lorazepam, which is another seizure med, but also a tranquilizer, Valium, morphine, OxyContin. And you know what the doctor tells me? If you need more, just give me a call. And I'm like, what? If I give her 2 doses, then she's gone. So when I look at hospice and people who are on palliative care, and the way our system is structured around what happens when you know you're going to die. You know what happens? You go to a palliative care doctor and you know who's in your first appointment? Pain management. You know what pain management does? They ask you what drugs you want. Literally ask you, what do you want? And they give it to you. They don't offer therapy. They don't offer any hope or support for people. So think of it this way. What happens to most Zellweger parents? Their baby's born, rush to the NICU, something's going on with the baby, they get downstairs and they go, well, we got some bad news. We just discovered that your baby has a disease that will destroy its brain. It's not going to live very long. We're going to go ahead and admit you into hospice so things will be more comfortable. Now, as a parent, you think, oh my gosh, these people want to help me. This is a terrible situation, but I'm going to get the help I need from people that really care about me and my child, which isn't true. Because once I started treating Maddie with cannabis, I also realized that, oh, you know, there's another option than Pediasure for liquid food, which Pediasure has sugar and corn maltodextrin. There's a whole food blended diet that's been on the market for like 10 years that Medicare has been approving for the last 2 years. I got it in 8 hours for my daughter. And in the last 3 months, people are like, what did you do? Change her oil? No, she's eating real food for the first time in her life because they just decided she wasn't important enough to have real food. It wasn't important enough to get Maddie therapy. So now my new fight is changing things in Washington, not back to the way they were, because that is unacceptable. We need a safe place. I can't go into a recreational store. I couldn't even go into a medical store before because they're a joke. Think of my situation. I'm taking a child who's terminally ill on oxygen at some times. She's got usually 5 pieces of equipment with her. And I'm rolling into a store that's got rock music and there's a big bouncer in the door and he's like, ID to my 3-year-old? How am I supposed to even go in the store? Should I really trust these people that have taken a 6-hour course? No, because they're not going to authorize her. I'm going to walk in there and they're going to laugh at me and go, what are you doing? So I got curious. Well, can they authorize kids? Well, if you read what the Drug Abuse Institute, the Washington training program for medically endorsed people, well, it says common sense indicates 0 access for children under 12. So what happens to the parent whose child is diagnosed with epilepsy and is having 500 seizures a day and they're on 6 medications and children says, we're maxed out, go home, and they think there's no more options, and all it took, literally, was not even 30 seconds. I Googled intractable epilepsy, and up pops cannabis oil, and endocannabinoid systems, and Project CBD, and if it took me 1 mouse click, why are all of these doctors not figuring this out? And why is this not a first option? Because now, the whole 1.5 years that my child's been on cannabis, instead of starting school and therapy and seeing if maybe she could walk because she's doing things she's never done before, I'm having to wean gabapentin, Dilaudid, takes 8 months, methadone, still weaning methadone because it's such a hard wean, because if I wean a drug, I get more seizures. Then I have to explain why she's having more seizures, because according to the medical community, if you're having more seizures, you're deteriorating. So you see why this whole system is messed up, because we're not focusing on real health care. We're not treating a person as an individual. We're treating people with companies, with corporations. Corporations shouldn't control our healthcare. Healthcare should be person dictated, and not even, this whole like, oh, you have this disease, so this is what happens to you. No. Personalized care. Every single person in America should have personalized care, even if the person sitting next to you has the exact same diagnosis, the exact same genetic mutation. I will tell you, from having a rare disease, a child with a rare disease, every single Zellweger child is different. I have never found a Zellweger baby that is like Maddie, and she's not like any other kid, because she's an individual. And we need to steer away from this big corporation money market into, let's actually heal the people and take care of them. Because if we're not taking care of our people, our youth especially is what I look at. I'm talking about children, mostly what I talk about. If we're not raising our youth to be dependent and not dependent on drugs, or if all the people we're raising up are dependent on pharmaceutical drugs, then who are our leaders going to be? Who are going to be the people that are going to step up and say, you know what? We need to make a difference. And they can't do that if they're drugged out. So I encourage everybody to, for me, I have always said, and I always will say, that my daughter's human right is to access her medication safely. And until I get that, I won't stop. And if the federal government wants to step in, that's their problem. But I will not put myself or my family on a registry. And we're actually in a lawsuit to kind of protect myself. So if you need kind of protection, file a lawsuit.